Good morning, welcome back to Marty's Tying Bench. I'm putting together materials for our Rocky Mountain Flycasters Pub and Dub social fly tying this month. We're going to tie a copper john. There's plenty of videos out there, some very good videos, but this one is for our group. Size 14 hook, 2XL. Tie it on a lot of different sizes from 10 down to 16. When you get down to 18 and stuff, I think I got other flies I like better. I'm not going to put any lead behind that bead. Instead, I'm going to use 140 denier thread. Black will work just fine. Don't be afraid to use a bright color that'll end up as a hot spot on the front when you finish the fly. Reds, chartreuse. Our tails are Biots. We're going to start by getting a couple of Biots and match them up. Nice and even. And we're going to make the tail about the length of the thorax. Touching turns, you want to keep this as even as you can. Want to get back right to about where the bend of the hook is. I'm going to set those down there and use my thumb to kind of and finger to keep them on top. Couple turns, there I got my fork tails. And I can use the Biots as bulk, so I'm going to wrap towards the front. Just want to get past the halfway point. The proportions here are going to be about, the thorax is the back 50%. The front 50% is going to be part thorax, part bead. Now I'm going to flatten this thread to give me a little more control. I'm going to build a little bit of a taper. Let's get the wire tied in there. Excuse me. For this size fly, brassie is the appropriate size wire. You get down to 18s, you might go down to small, but usually that just means you've got to make a whole bunch of wraps. Brassie works just fine on most of these sizes. Okay, kind of lost my taper on the front, so let's build up just a little bit more. Okay, now as the wire comes around, you want each turn to be just snug up against the previous turn. Keep those coils as tight as you can so the black thread doesn't show through between your wraps. The more time you spend and the smoother you get that thread underbody, the slicker this thorax will look. I need to get one more turn out of that, maybe two. There we go. We got just past the 50% mark. Now, we're going to have some flash on this, but it's very subtle. This one strip of flash, it can be crystal flash, it can be flashaboo, opal, pearl. Do the best you can to center that right on top. The wing case, you can use thin skin. I found some vinyl stuff at the craft store which keeps the cost down. And you want it to be pretty much the width of the bead. Reference to the hook gap won't help you here. You need this to sit neatly on top, so the bead is your measuring point. Again, get it centered on the top. Make your thread wraps come all the way back to the copper so that it's a clean transition. And I'm going to take a look and make sure my flash is centered. Now, I see how loose that bead is. I want to go ahead and build up some thread so that thing gets snug. Those of you who are accustomed to using too many wraps of thread, this 140 denier and the need to block that bead will work to your favor. Alright, now Peacock, you can get a synthetic in there since there's some good synthetics, but I don't think any of them have improved upon nature. Peacock is just too good. I use 3 strands. Good Peacock you might be able to get by with 4, or excuse me 2, but rarely use 4. That's just too much. Alright. You can pull these over at the same time or one at a time, but do your best to get that flash. Oh, wait a minute, I got a step. I'm going to take a hen hackle, any typical soft hackle. Partridge works well, and you can use some of those partridge feathers that don't really have the perfect markings for little soft hackles and stuff. They work great for copper johns. I cut that tip out, and I'm going to get some legs to go back. Now the technique here is to set them on top so that they reach back about halfway the length of the body. And come up with my left hand, and I'm going to pinch all of those legs into the peacock so they sit in place while I make a loose wrap, maybe a second one, and then tighten up. And that'll make those legs stick out a little bit. Now be real careful pulling on this because you can pull those legs out or short. So just kind of hold it in place and trim it as close as you can. Now you can pull these over together or one at a time. Right behind the bead. And a turn or two right in front of the bead. There, got a nice stripe right down the middle. Legs are decent length. The last step is going to be the application of some epoxy or some resin, and we're going to use resin today. Something with medium viscosity. Don't use the runny stuff or it'll just bleed down into the legs and make them stiff. But I'm just going to put just a tiny bit, the length of the wing case, get a little bit up onto the bead, a little bit of it down on the copper, and then just kind of let it settle, and as soon as it's smooth, we'll hit it with the lamp. So there you go, a copper john. Let's see if we can get the light over there. It's hard to see through all the reflections, but that strip of flash down the middle will kind of glow a little bit when you get the resin on it. So Copper John. It's I resent this fly because it does catch an awful lot of fish. It's got lead behind the bead on some of them. Got a copper wire. This thing's going to sink very well and get the fish on the bottom.